Oh, Molly Pecan, uh, Paceldicker Bornstein, Lillian Lux, Moishe Usher, which was the what was he had the most incredible opera sing. In fact, what I gave you, the potpourri of 21 songs, he's on Alavai, and that's when he came onto our radio show. No one really had a direction. It wasn't like RCA or they just played, but this was the newest thing. This was the beginning of really putting anything, uh, uh, any. I'm not talking your big Yiddish stars. I'm not, but Smalik Bikan went into the movies and so forth, but the others didn't. It just gave it was credibility, and it was just out there, and they didn't conduct it as a business.
Where were they located?
New York, right in the where was it? The last time it was right. What was that park it's in New York City? I'm trying to remember where it is. We went there once. That's when we saw. That's the first time we went there. I found it in Variety, and that's when I met Seymour.
Yeah.
And he was there, and they had a very tight union, and nobody worked for sale. We never had. We were paid for scale. What was that? Everyone was so happy to sing or to perform, and that was the beginning of anything that they did. But there are few artists that, well, I think one or two, like Jan Pierce. Okay, in fact, I'll give you a CD that RCA did with Jan Pierce, and he did all the Yiddish songs. So it was, and Paul Muni was the first actor. You talk about many of our famous movie stars they were in Yiddish theater, for goodness sake, and they were in Yiddish. And the biggest thing, they traveled the world. At that time, of course. Europe was a wonderful place for them to go. In later years, they went to Israel, and they did Yiddish show. It was Yiddish theater. And that's the reason that it's coming back again in Israel. The young kids are learning Yiddish. Yiddish is all over because there's so much of our vocabulary. The words are all Yiddish, and that's just it. So that was the exciting thing. But to give you exactly, what they did, but there are very few, what was it? Paceldicker Bornstein. Yeah, his son, the big star, and he did something on Broadway. It's just, we started at the very beginning, and we're talking in the 40s. All these Yiddish performers, all of them came from Poland. They came from most of them were Polish. That's where there's a big Yiddish theater in Poland in 1932. This was before the Holocaust. This was before when Yiddish was a very, very important way of life, because it's a kind of a language that it's from the heart, yeah. And people identify with it. I don't know if I'm answering your questions to this, but it's really interesting. In fact, one thing I feel sad about is that when Seymour Realzeit, who I said was the Frank Sinatra of the Yiddish theater, I don't know whether I told you, I mentioned it yesterday to you, is that in the early years, like in the 30s, when the Jewish ghetto was, whether it was in Brooklyn or in the Bronx or whatever, but no air conditioning, and when you walk down any of the streets or the avenues, all the windows were open, and they're all playing Seymour Realzeit.